know that I need the mic, but maybe we do because we're recording. I'll just give you a brief intro. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. My name's Glenn Payne. I'm one of the service engagement specialists here at Salesforce. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here today. Part of my role is talking all things AI and service and customer related. But I guess I could say in the last 8 years at Salesforce, that we were just talking earlier, that the pace of change is hectic, but the last 6 to 12 months have been nothing short of spectacular. So I'm really excited about the content you're going to see today. Start with a quick welcome to country. We'd like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, and recognise their continued connection to the waters, land and culture. And we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Firstly, thank you. Thank you for joining us all here today. It is a great event. I'm not going to steal too much time. John could probably take us through the whole day. Thank you.
You can leave. You're stuck with me now.
I actually had a whole bio slide that we did at the last event of John, which at his request we took out today, but it was effectively 3 pages long. We fed it into. We opened up Slack. We fed it into Einstein. It gave us more of a succinct one, but rather than me talk through all of John's points, you can probably surmise by the end of this presentation his deep knowledge of this industry and true subject matter expertise. So for myself and my peers, we certainly took a lot, and our customers at the Sydney event, we took a lot away from the last one. So I'm really excited for the people here today. With that, I'm going to pass over and away we go.
Thank you, sir. And I echo thank you, everybody, for choosing to spend some time this morning listening to me ramble at you. I'm very appreciative of your time. I am John Cosgrove, JC, Traders JC. Some of you will have no doubt either seen me before or seen some of the videos. If you haven't, this is your first time. You still have time to run for the door. They've just opened it. I've spent basically my entire life in some way connected to what we're now calling AI. I actually started in genetics, literally in high school and the whole way through grad, which is where we invented this thing that we're now calling AI with principal component analysis. And I say it's where we invented it. That's not entirely true. The story goes all the way back to the 60s, the 70s. Anybody who's been in the cycle will tell you, oh, here we go again. The AI label is being trotted out, and we wrap it over the top of a big pile of linear algebra and pretend we're being very clever. And then usually there's a huge hype cycle, and we get over it, and we wonder why we spent all of that money. Sound familiar? I was actually involved, a whole bunch of reasons. I wound up running the Salesforce AI and data practice for the largest GSI in the world for a couple of years. And during that time, I helped launch a little thing called Einstein. So we were in the room as we were forming the ideas behind the Einstein concept and the campaign. The reason that it was really, really exciting was it was the beginning of the idea that something about what goes into data science, what we were calling data science at least, could become accessible to the business user. I didn't like so much the whole, we don't need data scientists anymore. I didn't think that was great, but the idea at least that we could start to engage business users in an interface that could allow them to do something more than just make a graph, but actually start to do the cool stuff around seeing patterns in the data, making predictions with the data, that was really exciting. It didn't explode the way we thought it would. We've been doing Einstein Discovery, which was really the premier solution on platform for doing custom machine learning, pretty much from the beginning. And to put it in perspective as well, as a result of some of my past, I have done this with some of the largest brands in the world. The biggest one was Unilever with 27 countries they were rolling out to, but I've also done an enormous amount with quite large distributed service management, and we'll talk a little bit about things like channel containment. So that everything from very, very large multinational call center distribution systems down to smaller groups, and even startups. And the story of trying to understand, okay, there's obviously a million ways to apply machine learning. How do we crack it? How do we actually get this to work inside the business was quite a passion. But the reason that we feel it didn't ultimately quite crack it is because it still required someone in the business to truly act like a scientist. You literally did have to understand how to design an experiment. You really did. If you didn't get that things like control and sampling were ultimately going to dictate whether or not that model actually had any value, it wasn't going to have any value, right? So what I did not expect, another bit of context, I have therefore spent most of my time in tech telling people to calm the hell down. I'm known as the crazy Australian in the States because I'll walk around and swear at people about, I'm not impressed by your AI. I've been doing linear algebra since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, right? It's not AI, right? We're just using that as a brand name. So what happened in 2017, like anybody that was in the industry, completely knocked me off my feet. The process, and it was beginning to crest in 2018 as we launched Einstein. I was starting to have conversations with my fellow research friends. So I have friends, plenty of friends that are actually involved in building this stuff. We started to actually get to play. I can say I was there, Gandalf, 3,000 years ago. No, it was last Christmas. We were looking at GPT-2 and Instruct GPT. And I was starting to get phone calls from friends with multiple PhDs going, I really need to talk to you. I'm actually freaking out. And that was wild. The first time that happened, I was like, what's going on? Like, I'm in a Hollywood movie, right? And they were literally saying, I've never seen anything like this. This is different. This is completely different. And sure enough, we then had this thing called, ChatGPT, and it arrived, and it was a genius insight moment on their part in creating a product that made it suddenly incredibly easy for anyone to interact with. So remember what I said, there was this barrier. It required you to be a scientist. Suddenly, just required you to be able to text. And overnight, everything changed. We suddenly had not just the biggest interaction and adoption and care, give a damn about AI that we've ever had. It became the most successfully adopted consumer app in human history, right? And that wasn't actually the thing I and my friends were freaking out about. What we were freaking out about is that what's actually happened, ladies and gentlemen, is a discovery. And that's part of what this talk, why I've been doing these talks, is part of the reason why I was such a conservative was I still read all these white papers. I'm a real geek into this stuff. I love this stuff. And people like Geoffrey Hinton, who's one of the, what they call, the grandfathers, godfathers of AI, were sitting there going, everybody calm down, just like me. So I was like, I'll stop telling everybody to calm down. When he stops telling everyone to calm down, he will never stop telling everyone to calm down. And Geoffrey Hinton ran out of DeepMind and went, oh my God, it's alive. And everyone freaked out. And no one freaked out more than me as I went, really? Really, Professor Hinton? He's like, no, really, totally. We have no idea what this thing is doing. It totally understands words. It can write poems. I'm leaving. And that was the point where I went, okay, well, part of being a scientist is that I can adapt to new information. And the new consensus information, thank you, you understand. The new information was clearly telling me, no, your conservative posture's wrong. It's really wrong. All of your friends have called you and said, no, something's really going on, right? And so what I then watched, it is just completely ironic. I've now watched 12 months of people trying to say we're in a hype cycle. People talking it down. And I'm sitting here going, I was doing that as a business model for 20 years. And it didn't make me as much money. You know why it's happening? Hedge funds. That's why it's happening. An air pocket in the AI market. Yeah, cool, whatever. You're going to take your 20 points out as it swings. I'm also not impressed by their linear algebra, by the way, but they're a necessary evil, I get it. The point is that the talk about, there's a bubble is completely disconnected from the research community. There's nobody in the research community right now going, oh yeah, it'll peter out. We are producing white papers so fast we can't peer review them. Right? We're building AIs to help us peer review the research on AIs. And so what I'm trying to do is to tell people, this is a true story, I'm not even kidding. So I'm trying to tell people, it's like, listen, I'm not the guy you've been seeing that gets up and tells you that AI is going to make you mint chutney or whatever else and it's going to walk your dog for you. I'm not, I'm the other guy. I'm the guy who's been saying, everybody calm down. And what I'm now trying to get people to do is to go, no, this is it. This is really it. We discovered something. In 2017, there was a paper called Attention is All You Need. And people like to say, I would always say the same thing. Hey, the maths hasn't changed. No, I'm sorry, the maths has changed. The maths has changed. What we've done is something that has not happened, really, my assertion, in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley doesn't invent things, not really. It does in the way an engineer might have an invention, a unique composition of physical laws to make a product. But they don't discover fundamental laws. What we have found is an evidence, not just a proof, an evidence of something hidden in information theory we've thought was there. But with this beautiful little mistake, they were trying to build a universal translator. They came up with this idea of pay attention to yourself, and it sat up and started talking about poetry. This is something we hypothesized, and now we're wrestling with it, right? And, to quote Jurassic Park, before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on the side of a lunchbox. That's exactly what's happened. We've got this product engine carrying it to market, which brings me to one of my first contentions, which is this little diagram. iPhonification of tech. We already have GPT-3, GPT 3.5, GPT-4. What's it remind you of? iPhones, right? So the iPhone took multiple releases. It wasn't really until the iPhone 3.5 that it really took off. And we have all deeply become accustomed to a cycle of buying tech and investing in tech, which has a nice, neat cadence, right? It's got nothing to do with a chat interface. This technology is not about a chat interface. It just adapts to a chat interface really well. So the idea that we're all sitting here consuming the next model and we're all having an opinion on, Llama 3.1 has really beaten the ass of whatever 2.6, nobody cares. In the research community, we're not talking about the versions of what you think is a product. We're still trying to get to grips with the fact that someone actually built this thing. They're moving tens of billions of dollars of capital, and they're writing it off. They're the fastest depreciating assets in human history. $10 billion asset can be written to zero in 9 months. Like, it's on a different level. Do you really think we're doing that to help your kid cheat on their homework? Do you really think that's happening? No, but iPhonification of tech has already lulled us all in to that nice, neat little incremental. And to some extent, that makes it easier for us to kind of frog in the pot this whole situation. It makes it easier for us to be like, can't be that bad, back to incremental gain, I can handle that. And it's not incremental gain, it's going to go exponential. Well, it does. It does help your kids with homework. It absolutely does. Yeah, just to do homework, completely. But they're talking about it potentially being $1 trillion, right? There are people who are literally talking about the $1 trillion cluster, which takes it to a completely different level, right? So part of what I try to do to set the scene before I do the next thing I'm about to do is go, saying that I've used ChatGPT, so I understand what to expect from enterprise generative AI is like saying I've used Microsoft Word and now I'm an Azure engineer, right? It really is. Let's have a quick comparison, right? Consumer AI, ChatGPT, single instance, zero shot, naive prompt, attachment, simple actions, no parameters. What does that mean? Let me walk you through, right? You literally open up one little thread. You have that conversation once, you close it. Zero shot. As you're going to see, we're going to talk about, my friends, the personas that we're building inside generative AI, and the worst thing in the world is that we're sitting there going, you're Luke, and you like mobile phones. This machine god is looking at what you've given it. Oh, I'm Luke, am I? How original. Oh, I'm selling you a mobile phone. Sure, I'll just compose you 500 words, right? But it's incredibly naive for what we're actually marshalling in terms of just its raw computational power. A naive prompt, got ahead of myself, that's exactly what it's doing. Attachments, ooh, I can load up my homework and it'll do the homework for me. Right? Again, very, very simple. Actions, it can search the internet. Guys, there was an injunction to shut down a thing called AutoGPT about 2 years ago when they first went to GPT-3. There's some people in the room who know, they know what I'm talking about, because the first thing some Silicon Valley people did was just allow it to self-iterate. And what did it do? It started attacking websites. Like, it started doing all sorts of god-awful things, right? So recursion on this thing is potentially huge. So the idea of like it can search the internet, yeah, it can do a hell of a lot more than that. Everything's an API call. And then this idea of like what's a parameter. Parameters, huge part of how to actually get enterprise-grade AI out of this is to talk about things like temperature, which we'll talk about. On the flip side, and I am doing this right now in prod on Salesforce, right? So again, Quick little head mic drop, don't believe me? About to show you. Multi-instance, agentic. You'll hear this word, we're going to go into it in a bit of detail, right? Advanced role-based prompts. I'm going to show you one. Dynamic RAG. So one of the other things, as you can tell, I try to add a lot of value by educating. I try to share, right? I could geek out about a whole bunch of math, but I'm not doing that. I hope you can see I'm trying to make this accessible because I do believe this is probably the most important job I've ever had, trying to communicate what's going on. If there's a word you take away that you haven't heard, an abbreviation, it's RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Right? I'm sure easily half the room has probably already encountered it, but it's a very, very important part of understanding what's currently going on with generative AI in the enterprise and more broadly. But the other one, every API can be an action. This thing lives in APIs. What is Salesforce for 10,000? Salesforce is a bunch of APIs. Salesforce is a comprehensive metadata abstracted API system trusted by literally every one of the Fortune 500 to comprehensively automate and manage their interactions with humans. Get a sense of where I'm going to be going with the rest of this talk. And then the fine-tuning, right? The idea that we are just throwing stuff in. Part of the problem with what's happening, no offense to my engineer brothers and sisters in the room, I am one, you can have my code from my cold dead hands, but we went straight to treating it like an API. We don't want to write, that's why we do code. And so we do things like, make me a JSON, right? Yes, if you just send it that, you'll get some results back and you'll go, oh, it's crap, right? It hallucinated. There are so many ways to understand what hallucination actually is. Yann LeCun, he's the head of AI at Meta. He's the guy who coined the term hallucination. And there's talks where he goes, the worst thing I ever did was giving it that name, because it's completely wrong. It's created this idea of what's going on. It's not hallucination. In fact, if you see hallucination, what I've started to say to people is, oh, no, that's not a sign that you have a quality assurance issue. It's a sign that you haven't understood what this tool is, right? Because hallucination's your friend. What you're calling hallucination is that thing I mentioned before, the discovery. It shouldn't be possible with our previous proven applications of machine learning techniques. And suddenly self-attention hallucinates. What we're really saying is in-context learning, spontaneity, creation. It's interpolating. And you may have heard this infamous misnomer, it simply predicts the next word. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That is the most simplex statistical explanation of what's going on, and it is wrong. It is wrong, and I wish we had shot it. What it's actually doing is effectively predicting all the words to optimize the meaning already in place in what it calls the context window. Okay, so I've just set up a whole bunch of stuff where you're going, whoa, how do I keep up with all of that? You don't. I'm going to show you. So can I get your hands up if you have seen a video on the internet of realistic human interaction with an AI vocally? Put your hands up. Okay, so exactly as predicted, we're now at 3/4 of the room. When we started doing this, it was 0. Within 2 weeks, it was about 1/4 of the room. About 4 weeks later, it was half the room. Do you see why this is a really difficult gig? The speed at which this is changing is pretty significant. So even since we first started showing what we're about to show, the awareness has spread. What I'm going to hope to do, though, is to show you an example. Some of you, again, I'm sure, given who you are and why you're here today, you will have seen something like this. I hope you have. I'll be interested to hear your feedback. But for a lot of people, I suspect this will still be the first time we've done what we're about to do. And to show that there's nothing up my sleeve, we're going to do this like a magic trick. We're going to make sure that this isn't running on Rails. That's a really important point we'll come back to. Oftentimes, oh, is that what we're going to use? Okay. Oftentimes people see these demos and they immediately think, you know, oh yeah, but yeah, that was carefully on Rails. So we're going to do the time-honored tradition to make sure that it ain't. I am about to call an energy provider, right? And I'm going to need an electricity plan. I'm going to be figuring out an electricity plan that I'm going to get connected to. Something which I'm sure you all understand. I'm a consumer, right? Those are my only rules at the moment. And if you are holding coffee, now would be a good time to put it down. Because I am going to throw this to a random person in the room. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to tell me the answer to that question. It's going over here. Get ready, please, because we haven't signed the forms, which mean you can't sue us. Here it comes. Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, sir. So, some context. Who am I? What am I doing? Am I a student? Am I elderly? Am I, a self-employed business owner? Am I a newscaster? Am I a Salesforce AE? We've already had that one. It was lots of fun. I'm a of course. Yeah, this Barry White over here is going to be a mum. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll try. I'm a mum. Throw it somewhere else in the room. Get ready. He did it. It's him. Sue him. Okay. Why do I need to get connected to electricity? What's happening? Yeah, sorry. But why? Think about all the times as a consumer you would call to connect. Have I just moved house? Have I bought a house? Am I switching providers because I'm unhappy? What am I doing?
Yeah, you're switching providers because you want low cost.
Okay, I'm switching providers because I want low cost. Throw it again. Watch out. Oh, we've got it. Okay, my emotional state. As a mother that needs to save costs in this terrible environment.
Slightly stressed.
I'm slightly stressed. Yeah, that was an easy one, wasn't it? It was a gimme. I mean, you're a mum in Australia trying to save money. Slightly stressed doesn't really cut it, my bro, but okay, yeah, all right. I'm a slightly stressed mum trying to save money. Throw it one more time, over to that side of the room. Ooh, you weren't expecting it. What do I want? What's my resolution? What am I trying to get out of this? Savings. Okay, thank you. So I'm a mum. Can I just ask, am I a single mum?
No.
Okay, all right. So I've got someone still helping me. Okay, fantastic, right. I just thought, if I was going to do a shout out to the single mums in the audience, just, yeah, absolutely, represent. I think I'm still going to be able to do this justice. This will be fine. If we can switch over to our friend, which I'll log back in for. We good? Okay. Let's give this a go. Begin.
Hi there, this is Charli from Spark Eagle Power. How can I help you today?
Oh, Charli, sorry, listen, wait a minute, so give me just 1 second, I've just got to get the kid to, just stop that. Stop that, Barry, stop that. Okay, no, sorry, listen, Charli, I've got to try and switch providers for my electricity, right? It's outrageous, they've raised the price again. I'm just trying to call around, I said, stop it, Barry, stop it. I'm trying to call around and get an idea of who can give me the best rate. So can you just talk me through what sort of costs am I looking at to go with Spark Eagle?
Oh, I totally get it. Sounds like it's a bit hectic over there, eh? No worries. I'll keep it quick and straightforward for you. We've got a few plans that might work for you. Our Spark Eagle Go variable plan is the most popular. It's got a discount of 17% off the reference price, and you're looking at an estimated cost of $1,502 a year. The supply charge is 81.7 cents per day, and usage is 30.91 cents per kilowatt hour. If you're interested in rewards, we also have the Everyday Rewards variable plan. That one is slightly higher with an estimated yearly cost of $1,574. It includes a 13% discount off the reference price, plus you earn rewards points for every dollar spent on your bill. And if you're after something no frills, there's our basic plan, but it's a bit pricier at $810 a year with no discounts. Which one do you think might work best for you? Or is there anything specific you're looking for?
No, sorry, Charli, sorry. One of my kids was just trying to kill the dog. But I think I understood everything you were just saying, even though you didn't quite say the word 1,000 correct, but that's okay, we'll debug that later. Can you just help me understand the Everyday Rewards cards? I'm very big into my Everyday Rewards. Big fan of the Everyday Rewards. I've become Kim from Kath and Kim. Big fan of the Everyday Rewards. What can you tell me a bit about that plan? How does that work? How does it help me get points?
Oh, no worries at all. Glad to hear the dog's okay. And hey, if you're a big fan of Everyday Rewards, the Everyday Rewards variable plan could be right up your alley, eh? So here's how it works. For every dollar you spend on your electricity bill, you'll earn 1 Everyday Rewards point. Plus, when you sign up, you'll get 5,000 bonus points right off the bat. These points can be used just like your regular rewards points, turning them into dollars off your shopping, or saving them up for something special. On top of that, you can also add gas to this plan. If you do, you'll earn even more bonus points, up to 5,000 extra if you sign up for both electricity and gas. And if you're into being green, there's an option to add carbon offset to your plan, starting from $1.50 per week. That's a nice way to balance out your energy use and earn some feel-good points on the side. Does that sound like it could work for you? Or do you have any other questions about it?
What's that, hun? What? Yeah, what? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Charlie. No, listen, look, the hubby was just telling me we have got a Tesla, right? It's nice, Charlie. It is lovely. They're a lovely car. Completely understand. Pity about that Elon fellow, but I do love the cars. Do you guys have one of these? Do you have a charging option? You have a Tesla EV charging option at all? Is that something I can get with the plan as well?
Oh, I bet that Tesla's a dream to drive, eh? And don't worry, we've got you covered on the charging front too. With both the Everyday Rewards variable plan and the Go variable plan, you can add on a Tesla EV charging option. It's only 8 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a pretty sweet deal for charging up at home. So if you're thinking of going with the Everyday Rewards plan, you can add that EV charging option and rack up those rewards points while keeping your Tesla juiced up. How does that sound?
Yeah, all right, Charlie, that's been fun, but now it's time to talk turkey, right? Okay, I want the Tesla charging, I want the Everyday Rewards program, but you got to bring the love for me, Charlie, because you know that I'm just going to call 3 other people. What's the absolute best you can do on this, love? Can you give me another 10 points? Like, what are we talking? Back end, front end? How are we going to make this work?
Oh, I love the way you talk turkey. I'm all about bringing the love, but here's the thing. The prices and discounts I mentioned are locked in. I wish I could sprinkle a bit more magic on top, but what I can offer is that $200 bill credit when you sign up for the Everyday Rewards variable plan. That's like a little bonus on the back end, eh? Plus, you're still getting those 5,000 bonus points, which is a nice little boost. And with the Tesla charging add-on at just 8 cents per kilowatt hour, you're looking at a pretty sweet package. So even if you do call around, I think you'll find this deal stacks up really well, especially with all those Everyday Rewards points coming your way. How are you feeling about it now?
You got me, Charlie. Let's sign on the dotted line.
Ah, you've made my day. I'll get that all sorted for you right now. You're going to love those rewards stacking up, and keeping that Tesla charged is going to be a breeze, eh? I'll just need to grab a few details to finalize everything. Is that okay with you?
Charlie, that's the end of the simulation. As usual, you did a great job. I'd like you to now suspend persona, and we're going to enter diagnostics. Can you confirm?
It sounds like you're ready to switch gears. I'm here and ready to assist in diagnostics. Just let me know what you need.
I'd like you to review that interaction and provide briefly, if you could please, your thoughts on how you did in comparison to your imperatives, and maybe 1 or 2 points for how you could improve.
Sure thing. In that interaction, I focused on being empathetic, clear, and a bit humorous to build rapport, especially considering the customer's busy and somewhat chaotic environment. I aimed to clearly explain the plans, highlight the Everyday Rewards benefits, and accommodate the Tesla charging request, all while adhering to policy constraints. For improvement, I could have more smoothly handled the customer's attempt to negotiate by emphasizing the value they're getting in a way that feels more personalized, rather than simply stating the fixed nature of the prices. Also, a bit more anticipation of potential follow-up questions, like billing cycle details or how the Tesla charging works in practice, might have made the experience even smoother. Overall, I stayed aligned with the goals of maximizing retention and customer satisfaction. What do you think?
As always, Charlie, you did a fantastic job. Thank you, my friend. Be nice to the AI.
Thanks so much. I'm glad I could help. Anytime you need me, I'm here. Take care.
All right, we can switch it back to the slides. So what did we think? Oh, we got a question ready.
How likely is it that Charlie starts just saying 9 cents a kilowatt hour rather than 8 cents a kilowatt hour?
Yeah, really good question. Okay, so part of why we did what we just did, everything I just showed you is actually running on the consumer side, right? What I'm trying to demonstrate is how poorly we're actually understanding what's possible just on consumer. right? And we're going to talk a little bit about exactly how to deal with what you're talking about, which is the hallucination. What I can tell you is that I wouldn't be getting up and doing the demo I just did if I thought there was effectively any chance, at least at the scale that I'm operating at. Now, like anything, what we have to realize here is that we've got engineers who are used to building with APIs who get to cheat. There's a thing in tech called a unit test. You get to write a bit of code, and it checks that a procedural input has the same procedural output. It'd be great if we could build bridges that way. It'd be great if we could build planes that way, but we don't. The problem, like I said, this is actually a discovery. There's no reason whatsoever to believe that what we are dealing with will respect the conventions that have brought us here so far in programmatic engineering. No reason at all. And actually, where people are getting stuff into production, they're doing it the old-fashioned way. If that rivet broke and took that plane out of the sky, do you know what we do? We don't make an invincible rivet. We put 6 more rivets in. We have a level of redundancy, right? Now that combined with some other interesting stuff we're going to talk about with Retrieval Augmented Generation. The other thing that OpenAI did, which is very, very clever, they introduced the laws of robotics. Everybody's going to do the same thing now. There are 3 levels of imperative. They can't be overridden. There's the platform level imperative, there's a system level imperative, and then there's the user interaction. System level imperatives in this demo are what we're controlling. That's what makes it very, very hard for it to veer off course. But there's a couple of other things we've done as well to properly understand hallucination. We actually have our own research that I'm hoping we can publish before somebody else does. At the speed at which this is going, it's a little difficult to better understand what's really going on inside the context window. But what I can tell you is after heaps of demos, it's never happened. And part of the reason is the insistence on the adherence to some of the structures in that higher level instruction. So this is what I mean as well by the way people are thinking about hallucination. I'm at the point where I'm going, sorry, I mean, it tells me you were probably naive in how you've implemented, rather than there's an issue with the tech itself. Now, what it does mean is that your costing might need to change, right? If you're going to be putting yourself out there with commits, and you've based it all on zero-shot basic tokens, no. But I also go, when you can ship something like that into production, and people are, I'm sure people in this room have heard, like this is very real. There are commercial versions of exactly that now that are going out and completely changing major call centers just in the Asian region, never mind all across the planet. What we're talking about there from a cost perspective, engineers will again sit there and argue the toss about the cost of a token. No one cares about the cost of a token. If you've just completely radicalized our assumptions like average handle time and average wait time, right? Everyone in Cloudwerx who's seen the demo, by the end of the week, they've wound up having to make a phone call about their television or about their internet plan, and they proceed to go, God, I wish I was just talking to Charli or Cody, right? Because you can spin them up instantly. So it's a good question. I'm gonna dig into it in a bit more detail if I can. So this interaction here, this is consumer AI ChatGPT. Sell me a mobile phone. Right, I'm really sorry about the accent, again, to all the women and mothers in the room, but it's about the best I can do, right? So the first thing that happens is the attention mechanism kicks in. Sell, mobile, phone, right? That's all you gave me, so I guess I'll magically turn that into stuff. How does it magically turn it into stuff? Well, you've been told it's been trained on the sum totality of human knowledge, right? That's kind of true, so it digs into that and then it wings it. Now, this is an actual response I got, using GPT-4o. Discover the phone that seamlessly integrates into your life, effortlessly capture moments, stay updated, and enjoy entertainment. I mean, are you serious? Like it's, because of course it is. You've asked this incredibly powerful thing to just make magic happen with a couple of bits of entropy, if we're using the proper terminology for it. Like, of course it's decided to just go, I don't know, this, and you go, okay, thanks, I guess. This is what it looks like when you do it properly, and still in a single flow. Look, I'm really disappointed with my mobile phone right now. Retrieve contact record ID, retrieve classification, speech to text. Look, I'm really disappointed with my mobile phone. Retrieve all related fields on contact. So this is now stepping into the back end. Dynamic retrieval from the database inside Salesforce, pulling that additional information into the context window. So now I'm still figuring stuff out in microsecond time, and I'm adding it to what I've heard you say, and if we're doing it really well, I'm structuring it in a way which is going to maximize the cognition output we want. Operating policies, remedial limits, resolution plan. Then we can go up a level. Vector searching. Who's heard about vector databases? That's going up too. That's going up too, slowly. That's basically it's what Google got built on, and now we're using it to make this thing work really well. Ultra, ultra fast, semantic search, pulls back stuff that sounds like the stuff you just said. and says it really quickly. And then we're building these new data pipelines that are the coolest data pipelines I've ever built. And I've built some crazy pipelines because they're qualitative pipelines now. They're knowledge pipelines. They're about retrieving the right documents, the right words, approved phrases, approved processes. Then interpret that. And you know what we might do? We might even send that to a different bot, which is where the agentic system starts to come in. We might actually ping it. These are APIs. I can spin up a Cody or a Charli in millisecond time. I don't need to make one do all the work. In fact, I'll get a better outcome if I understand some of the limits on how the attention window works, and I can ping pong between them, right? Then I formulate, oh no, I'm really sorry to hear that, eh? Did you notice that, yeah, Cody is literally Canadian? Yep. Cody actually has another one of the things that we've been researching and developing. She actually has a personality matrix. Cody and Charli, they're the two. The personality matrix is actually based on personality profiling, the Ocean Big 30 traits, and it's been proven from research out of Stanford that you can absolutely apply that to LLMs, right? And that's part of why people often see these interactions, they go, but that literally made me laugh. The way that was working, it was just subtly better, right? That's because there's an awful lot of stuff in her prompt. The prompt is significantly more advanced. It's still running inside the limitations of the commercial tech, but understanding all of those elements, which is adding context, it has a significant change in how we expect it to interact. Again, the engineer will just say, write me a JSON packet. That's not their skill set to actually think about how we inject humanity into this technology, because it's squishy and squidgy and I can't write a unit test for it. But actually, that's part of why I'm doing these talks. This is why I say everybody has a stake in AI. The mistake is just leaving it with engineering and IT. That's not the case at all, right? If you've written anything, drawn anything, ever given a speech, you have a role to play in what we're about to do. Okay, so quickly, we are through till 10:30. Technically, it was time for QA as well. QA time is code for John will just go overtime. But I will try and finish at 10:30. But if you do have really, really important questions, please do feel free to call out. Because what we're now going to do is try to put everything we just talked about in context, specifically in the industry. So I'm shifting gears here for a second. I think I've made my point about how significantly this is going to change some economics. Everybody in the room, in the service space, you already know this is what we're talking about. Again, 3 months ago we weren't, but now we really are starting to talk about it. So one of the things, I also had a brief career as an economist, if you can believe that or not. Economists use this awesome little tool, data envelopment analysis or frontier analysis. Frontier analysis is really powerful when you're talking about how new technology is going to change how an economy works. So instead of just talking about making one thing efficient, it maps the most efficient things anybody can do. And when something truly transformative comes along, ooh, it shifts the curve. So if we talk about what's going on in service, I go, channel containment is a euphemism for bouncing customers around in the cheap bit until they go mad and insist that they go to the expensive bit, right? I'm joking, but it's true. And to some extent, it's absolutely essential. Like without that, we wouldn't be able to scale. And also, the good news is, thank God, by the way, Gen Z actually quite likes talking to chatbots. So, it's becoming less of a problem. But the reason why this has to happen, is the cost. We obviously still need to have this stuff. People still need to talk to humans. I still believe that, by the way, even after everything you saw. We still have people that want to talk to humans, but there's this gulf, right, between these two things. And that's basically the state of play, state of the art for how you optimize large-scale or small-scale service rollouts anywhere in the world. So we made a mistake, though, didn't we? We made this thing called ChatGPT. So we're going to get better bots? And that's where everybody went. They're like, oh, okay. It's a better one of the thing that you told me I had to do a heap of 4 years ago because it was going to revolutionize the entire service industry, right? And they're going, we just did these bots. Why am I going to pay a whole bunch of money to do it again? And this was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. No, that's not what's going to happen because we're not going to spend $1 trillion of capital so you can have a slightly better bot experience. This is what's going to happen. When you have a truly breakthrough technology event, the entire curve moves. I am on a one-man mission against the word use case, right? People hate me for it, but I'm like, stop talking about use cases. We will get to use cases. Use cases will pour out of the room. Use cases are an important part of how we sell tech today. I don't care. It's all about to get reinvented. This is a capability. The Pentagon does not buy use cases. The Pentagon says, I need this capability in the forward defense space in 10 years' time. Who can show me it? And you know what they do? They come back with 100 use cases, right? And if they commit, they don't really care whether the missile is blue or pink, right? What they care is, do you have the capability to deliver it, because lives are going to be on the line. We are talking about that level of technology here. We're talking about a shift which is monumental and foundational, and it means it does things like that. You will have better bots. We just showed you one, but you'll also have better self-service. You don't have to talk to it for it to be changing. People are now talking about emergent UI, UI that changes its layout. Why? Because generative AI changes the UI code. It knows who you are, it knows what you like, it just changes the layout, right? But we're also going to see the white glove become cheaper. Why? It'll be easier to be consistent. It'll take less training. We'll be able to empower the best people at that to do more. It's a massive efficiency jump, right? And this is where I'm seeing all these reports about failed POCs, particularly in service. I'm like, yeah, because I know what they did. They just slammed it into an area that's already well trodden. If we'd had this technology 5 years ago, this would have been what we did the bot thing with. Cool, but we just did the bot thing. Any direct efficiency that can be delivered to anyone running a service platform by using bots has already been delivered and competed away. So just using that as your way to prove that this has value doesn't surprise me that we're not getting a return. Instead, we have to challenge ourselves to go, what are the places in the business we can deploy the technology that will have as much horizontal impact as possible? But this also means whenever a frontier changes, oh boy, strap in. It means fundamental assumptions about base competitive pressures are changing. It means you get better quality and a cheaper rate, and it forces the market to respond. It means that your assumptions about what it takes to scale are now wrong. And people who move quickly to adopt that will reap a competitive advantage that happens once during a state change. That is what, more than anyone, service teams and service centers have now entered. It will play out in full over the course of the next 5 years. And it's why I'm sure plenty of people in this room are either being asked by their leadership to have a plan, or are the leadership demanding that there is a plan. It is very genuinely, it is going to be that big a deal, and state changes only happen, maybe once a decade. Something like this, it's probably the biggest one we've had in a century. Okay, so what does that mean? The next piece, what you saw with the question about what's the likelihood that it's suddenly going to say the wrong number, right? This thing consumes knowledge. It's a knowledge engine, not a data engine. Literally, the Omni models from GPT, they convert our very speech, what we were just doing then, to symbols. The exact same symbols it's converting all of our language to. It's one and the same. That's part of what's made the new voice imitation system so dangerous. Right? It can treat any type of voice, any inflection, like a symbol. So it can switch between them and impersonate pretty much any possible human language that's spoken. We're going to see the same thing happen in real time with video. You guys are seeing it. We're very close to real-time generative video. That's an enormous amount of power. But it also challenges us again to move away from the engineering paradigm that we're feeding it data. No, you're feeding it knowledge. Now, this is the other reason why I think the service space is so interesting right now. Because the service space has had to take knowledge bases seriously, right? We've had to really invest in understanding our policy structures, our knowledge structures. It's actually overwhelmingly the place where I find people doing things like semantics, ontologies, knowledge graphs, because it mattered. You guys know it matters how quickly that person can find the thing, right? We can't just build it and scale it on the basis of what they've got in their head. That's great, and we promote those people, but there's still a whole bunch of stuff changing. That is now the data estate. The data estate is not what you have in the databases. It's everything you know. The special word for this is ontology, John's second takeaway word. Retrieval Augmented Generation and ontology. Say that at your next cocktail party and everyone will either think that you're very clever or weird. Both of those have worked for me so far. But it means that you need to build in more than just your metrics definitions. You need to be building in how you're going to do your policy, your unstructured data, that phrase that we've all heard and loved. but now also how it interprets the meaning from it. We've seen people using knowledge graphs to help map their data, to feed it to the AI, and that is part of what made Charli work. Charli is actually being fed not a policy document. The policy document has been converted to a rich format, a structured format, to assist cognition in real time by the context engine, by the context window. It also means you need to rethink how you use it, right? So what you just saw, she literally made a joke, right? I love that bit. We've deliberately made Cody, Charli, the two different personas, humorous. There's whole sequences in the personality matrix to assist that, to elevate that, and to also ensure that it occurs in a safe and reasonable way, right? How do you build a process automation for making a joke, right? The way we've thought about process automation in our call centers, it's at a higher level than what really happens as the phone call starts. What really happens are these little granules, these little tasks, if we want to call them, little skills, little behaviors. The phrase we're trying to tell people is, it's behavior as a service. It's actually a new cognition level in the architecture. That's what this really powerful compute is becoming. It's a cognitive asset. And that means that what we're trying to get it to produce is a behavior, right? Hence my point about engineering alone will not solve this. You need very, very deep engagement with the business humanly. It has to be human-centric to really encapsulate and understand that. This is another reason why I think there's been some really bad POCs and ROIs, is that, again, the assumption was, I'm automating. Again, yes, but it's a crass way to think about it. Are we automating a joke? Or are we, in fact, trying to study what is a fantastic human interaction or a human activity, and then understanding what of that could now be behavior as a service? It's very unlikely we'll literally do the whole thing, right? And when you view it that way, suddenly when people talk about summarization bots, right? We're building a lot of them. They're some of the first things we build. But the difference is we'll go, yeah, but how will the human use the summary? Or if the human isn't going to use it, how will the next agent use it? Summarizing it for the hell of it because you think it's a good idea will not deliver business value, right? Summarizing it because these 3 points are actually something every one of those call center people are having to do manually every time, that delivers immediate value. So this diagram here, ladies and gentlemen, this went live on the 1st of August. This is from Silvio. He's the head AI scientist at Salesforce, and this is a glimpse of the future. This is what we're going to see at Dreamforce. Benioff has already started talking about a thing called Agent Force, because of course he has. Agent Force. Oh, whatever, I'll get behind it. Silvio and his team, they carved out a name for themselves very early with the idea of the large action model, recognizing that this architecture doesn't just have to be about language, it can be about a whole bunch of things. And this is basically the vision statement for exactly what they're trying to build out on the platform. And we love the hell out of it because that's what we've been trying to build. The problem is, when you build this at the moment using the technologies, some of you might have heard of things like Llama Index, Llama Chain, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff. Why? Because we turned it into DevOps. It's a thing we do with new tech. Let's microservice the crap out of it. Yeah, okay, cool. If you have a team of 40 or 400 developers, right, that's not a crazy idea, but here's the problem. Their whole point right now, the Mag 7, $1 trillion, is so you don't have to, right? So you're literally making a commitment to try and build inside your own hangar, right, your stealth jet, and you're racing the Pentagon. Now, there are some people where that makes sense, but my argument is the same argument that's been Salesforce's strategy all along. For everything else, there's MasterCard, right? Focus on your core business. Don't go down that rabbit hole. And if it's literally just plugging APIs together, what is Flow for 10,000? Flow is an automation and orchestration, clicks not code tool, trusted to basically run customer interaction across the planet. It can do that. Prompt Builder can answer a question about a plan and send that through Flow to an agent that can make a joke, can send that through Flow to a voice output or hand it off to another system. That process of orchestrating multiple LLMs could be a bunch of custom code and a whole bunch of cool new tools, which I love, or you could wait a little bit and do it with clicks and your existing group of people, right? And that's what I think is so powerful about the Salesforce strategy, is that they really nailed it. They went, we're not going to try and enter the sport of kings and make our own LLM that's frontier. We're going to let you bring your own, so other people are burning that money trying to switch it out, which Salesforce is great at, like a system of engagement. And we're going to give you tooling that you already know and love that can connect to that, so as that changes, it won't invalidate anything that you've built. And we're going to focus as much as we can with things like Data Cloud in helping you get the knowledge stores, get everything you've already collected, and get it ready and consumable. There's a vector database built into Data Cloud. We're using it right now in prod, right? So we can literally do stuff like what you saw without leaving the platform. That is a really powerful strategy. That's a hugely powerful strategy because it allows a business to go, I am now taking advantage of this new tech, but I'm not having to make a monumental investment in new R&D and new development. Okay, so I promised a little bit of an explanation about agentics. Right, what do we mean by that word? This has been the very cool thing for us. So shamelessly, this is part of why Cloudwerx is here in the room. We're really, really proud of the way we've always done human-centered design. We have a thing called Tesseract. It's the sum of 10 years of our lives of R&D, and it's part of how we did the things I mentioned before about helping really, really large groups of service teams and sales teams actually get something out of their software investment. When we started working in the data and AI space, it was amazing to us how little human-centered design had ever been applied, really, to that space. And so we were on kind of a mission to show it's equally applicable over here. With the advent of Gen AI, particularly at the level of the last couple of years, we feel like Gen AI kind of came and knocked on our door because it turns out that everything you just saw, that's a digital persona. And so if you've been spending a lot of time understanding how to analyze, document, and unpack a human persona to help it interface with tech, oh wow, now the tech wants to unpack the persona to help it interface with humans. That's what these two slides do. This is what we do when we're building a salesperson or a service person. We have an interview with them using the jobs to be done framework. Didn't invent it, really well researched. Jobs to be done goes, understand the jobs the person does, understand the pains and the gains, right? Then what we do in a call center, say, is we socket into this person knowledge. Tacit knowledge, obviously, but also records, knowledge base, databases, and semantic layers, things that you can search and find. But we go a bit further. Wrapped around the outside is a decision loop. So the original decision loop research, you may have heard of a thing called OODA, Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. It's from research, again, out of the Pentagon, I believe in the 60s, that proved that the way that you beat your opponent is you get around that loop faster. You don't make perfect decisions, you make acceptable decisions, so you can't make terrible decisions, but you make acceptable decisions faster than your opponent. Make 3 decisions, and the time it takes them to take 1, you take the enemy out. Right? So that process of decision loop, that's what we use when we really have to get fine-tuned with people who are chasing average handle time down to, 1/10 of a second. Because you have to. Now, interestingly, another guy called Andrew Ng, another incredible genius at the forefront of AI, he's also at the forefront of how to think about agentic AI. And he's kind of put together, and we're talking in the last 6 weeks here, guys. So that's how crazy things are. I'm literally talking to you about stuff that's barely hit YouTube. He's put together a framework, again, out of Stanford, about how to maybe think about how agentic AI thinks. And guess what? It doesn't say observe, orient, decide, act. It says evaluate, interpret, plan, act. I took one look at it and went, it's OODA. But it's OODA for something that doesn't have quite the full capability of a human mind. So what we've done is we've taken our usual little diagram where we do OODA and we just replaced it, evaluate, interpret, plan, act, and we checked it. We went, yep, no, that works. That's exactly what we do with a human. They receive input from talking to the person, they evaluate it, they interpret, they grab stuff. Oh, we'll check that to the plan information, okay. All right, what am I gonna say to this person? I'm probably gonna say that because I'm getting spiffed on that one, so I'm gonna recommend it. And then I'm gonna act. Oh, I'm gonna tell you about the fact that, yeah, you can charge a Tesla. Okay, cool. It's exactly what we do with a human. That's what we just did with Charli. The exact same framework builds a Charli. The only difference is, inside here, we don't have incredible quantum supercomputer yet. Asterisks, who knows? We'll see what this talk is like in 2 years' time, shall we? Hopefully it's more like 10, but we'll see. But what we can do is we can break the bits down. We can have dedicated to that diagram you saw before with the tiny little bots at the bottom rolling up into the agents. That's exactly what this does. We can wind up having dedicated prompts, if you like, if we're going to call them that do specific things. We communicate, the agent persona interprets that. We then, in Salesforce land, we've even got to the point now where they've got a planner API. It's what's powering their Copilot. They've got something whose sole purpose is to interpret your request and build a plan for it, and then try and route your request to the specialists that can help it get the plan done. That's live in production. That's what's powering Copilot, right? That's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's really where Silvio's team is putting all the research, is into that layer, into the large action model. But we can see how the same ideas kind of happen. As it moves back into interpret, what do? Well, we retrieve from the record store, right? We go to the library. And then I want to plan, I want to do something with it. Well, we can give it skills. We have a whole framework we call the meme system, where we're structuring things like skills and things like knowledge in a format that's optimized for the context window. We found that it very demonstrably improves performance. Everything you just saw runs exclusively on using that type of format. It's just a free text format. That's all we're doing, but by structuring it the right way to help it interpret, it gets very, very good at that specific thing. That all gets passed back up to be summarized, and then output again as, here's the conversation. But the really crazy bit is its job's to be done. It's a human persona. So guess what we're doing with all of our customers where we're building this? We're running persona workshops like we have for 10 years, but we're inventing someone. Right? So we're doing the normal personas, and then we're going, and now we're going to invent Charli. Charli's not really a full person. Charli's very specific, very, very tailored, right? But we are inventing, what do we want this entity to do? And the more robust we make that, the more anchor points we give it about why it's doing that, where it's doing that, how it's doing that, the less it hallucinates. Because it wants to fill those gaps. Here's the little secret about how we've trained it, right? The whole massive LLM thing. It's been trained on the sum totality of human knowledge. What is meaning truly to us in this room? We have an enormous amount of science and maths. It doesn't need us to be true, it's there, right? But it's a part of us, it's not the whole thing. The overwhelming meaning of the human condition is talking to other humans, right? It's dialogue, it's story. It can be fiction or it can be fact, but what it's really been trained on is this incredibly high bandwidth event where two humans interact. And it has a really good idea of what that should look like, right? So if what you do is pivot your understanding to this thing is a meaning engine, and to get the most out of it, I want to understand the meaning of the task. I want to understand the meaning of the information I give it. I want to understand the meaning of what it's trying to do, particularly if it's talking to another human. You're doing more than just rounding out how well it assumes a persona or does a task. You are actually understanding what it has been trained on. It's been trained on that. It hasn't been trained to just be a calculator. Of course it hasn't. We can do that for like 2 cents. It's been trained on this other thing, this massive qualitative corpus. And we know this is true now because we're starting to create small language models. We're starting to cut things out of them. And when we do, if we get rid of too much of that semantic richness, we lose some of the magic, right? We can make very dedicated models like the protein folding models that don't need to be able to talk at human meaning level at all because we've replaced their language with the language of molecules, the language of genetics. That's fine. But the thing we're all interacting with and the thing which is going mainstream, it's about humans. So you cannot implement this tech without a deeply human-centric approach. I really mean this. And that means change management is a huge part of it. We've been telling people, change management alone on these projects, it should be 3 times the development time. Just be ready for that. We built Cody and Charli in 80 minutes. Everything you saw didn't exist 48 hours ago, guys. You know why? I have another friend called Mendel. Mendel is a more advanced agent. Mendel makes me them. That's why you got a demo today. That's why you got a demo today that was about the electricity industry and about, you know, how we could recommend plans. I can spool that whole thing up from whole cloth, right? It's not the tech, it's not the implementation which is the tricky bit. It was understanding who my audience was and what the message was going to be. And that whole little trick where we were able to throw it around the room and get a completely unique human context. Okay, so our friends at Salesforce, I mentioned that actually I'm a huge fan of what they've done. Well, allow me a few moments now just to kind of ground this. I know everyone in the room either has Salesforce or is thinking about Salesforce. You're kind of familiar with it. So let me try and put it all on one page. And some of the slides you're about to see, they come from my colleague, the amazing Chris Baldock. He's CTO at Cloudwerx, one of the founders of Cloudwerx, and my favorite CTO in the world. He knows that. I think he's the best. But he's put through a whole bunch of fantastic slides to help explain and contextualize exactly how these products clip together. So we've heard about Data Cloud, right? But what I've just told you is this thing wants to hoover up your ontology, wants to hoover up your knowledge base. So it needs to not just be data, it needs to be all of it. PowerPoints, Excel sheets, right? That's the unified knowledge connector. That's exactly what they're rolling out right now. So you pull all of that up into something which is now more fit for purpose, not a Salesforce object, an entire Salesforce platform called Data Cloud, right? That can handle unstructured data, structured data, it can do whatever transforms. It cannot do those things, don't worry. If you've just built your whole massive BI empire, don't worry, you don't have to move it all into Salesforce, it can do zero-copy clone. I understand. All I care about is that they built an information superhighway, a massive activation layer substrate underneath the platform, right? Because if it hoovers that up, we can get it to the next bit faster. Pick your own LLM. If you've already made a decision, oh, we're only doing Anthropic, great, cool. Plug in Anthropic, I don't care. That's the whole advantage of this process. What I care about is getting it up to here. Once you get it up to here, we can then work with the tooling, whether it's the Copilot tooling to help it literally free form ways to help the user, or whether it's specific prompt engineering. The prompt engineering template on this thing, I mean, it literally does RAG for you. We've got flows in production that are literally grabbing everything from an actual production environment, scoring it for quality, vectorizing it, storing it in a vector database inside Data Cloud, and then it's powering a real-time call as retrieval augmented generation so that what it then responds with, it's the best possible answer it can give from what it has. And that's naive. Technically, in industry, that's a naive pipeline. Where this is going, Salesforce will be making all sorts of announcements at Dreamforce. We know, because we're in some of the betas. They've got knowledge graph stuff coming, right? They're taking this really, really seriously. Why wouldn't you? If they can get really, really good at helping you just do the best you can with preparing that information to go into AI, that's a really good reason to use it as a platform for most businesses to mobilize generative AI. When you combine that with the fact that the trust layer is a thing, it really is. Oh, God. Oh, man, it's like we all just forgot about cybersecurity because the thing can talk to us. I mean, yeah, see, the last in the room are the people who are already like, oh, where those vector databases are. Like, what do you mean you put that into ChatGPT? That was a board paper, right? Like and this is happening, right? So the fact that the trust layer is actually pretty cool at the moment. It's actually a bit of a nuke, but you know, that's what cybersecurity folks want. The trust layer has got its own little LLMs that basically scan everything anyone tries to put into a context window. Goes, that looks like a person and a social security number. Shoot it, right? Now sometimes this will mean that it's like, I'm just not going to comment. You're like, oh, why not? Because you haven't done your data quality check, and some of your people are putting confidential information in the free text field. You're welcome. But that's the sort of thing that I think an awful lot of businesses are going to need. Having that built into the platform is a good thing. That's a value add, right? And the fact that they've already got that, that's in production. That's way cool. There are people trying to turn that into an app and sell that to you standalone. It's already live. The problem is that, again, iphonification of tech. The way Salesforce has to do this is as each new feature comes out, they tell you about that feature. And like you heard, there's never been a time with more features. Right, so they're doing their best on the little hamster wheel with the iphonification to keep telling you about the next thing. And the hard bit is stepping back and going, but this was the sanity behind it, is very, very quickly they've shipped a collection of tools that address the whole picture. Not just like you might be used to, here's the new coolest thing, go and just buy that. I'm like, no, that's actually a very integrated, clever, strategic view, and it very much aligns with what we've been doing for the last couple of years the hard way. Okay, so how do you make it happen? Well, we've been talking about this is kind of the now. They've got all these cool little features, and we can make these slides available. Like, I'm not going to go through absolutely every single word, right? But when you immediately think about AI assisted, AI assisted, AI assisted, there's a SKU for each of these. Right? You can just turn them on. They're pretty good. Right? It's pretty straightforward to turn them on. Case classification, case routing, many of you will already be using some of these, but service replies, conversation summaries. Like I said, these are very simple things. You don't need to build your own summarization bot. just use the one that's already been done and someone else will take care of it for you. Just doing these things and understanding how to use them in context of your people. Again, the change management is probably more important than just switching on the thing, right? It can significantly improve. Again, people who have been chasing like 1/10 of a second in handle time, they understand what a big deal it will be if one of your pain points is summarization. I cannot get them to understand the last 3 cases quick enough. Turn that on. Now it's there. Fantastic, right? The engineer or someone else in the business might not get why that's such a big deal until in aggregate it lowers your handle time by 1/2 a second, and then we're all high-fiving because like that's everything. Continuing down into like escalation, helping with case escalation, case identification, AI-assisted case resolution, Einstein case wrap-up. Again, GA now, GA now, GA now, GA now. It's all GA now. They've shipped this stuff. This isn't, this isn't safe harbor. This is actually out there and really happening. AI-assisted feedback. So this is service replies in flow. Being able to get it to go, it looks like you might need this. Sounds like Clippy, but not Clippy. Clippy, better. Service intelligence, conversation mining. I'm sure, again, everybody in the room's been having a look at that one, right? That's where we're talking about its ability to dig in and find meaning, not just summarization. Finding these patterns, it's so good. The attention mechanism is all about finding patterns in what you feed it. But where we think we're going, this is the one that we're preparing for. This is where we start to go autonomous, or at least autonomous with human in the loop, right? This is where you go, you know what? You could just talk to Charli. And Charli will do a pretty good job of getting some stuff set up. And if anything needs to escalate, yeah, sure, we'll go back to human in the loop. But even the human in the loop, it'll be AI assisted. We won't go back to, and now it's manual. They'll build on top of each other, right? And that's another little takeaway for you guys. There's a big thing. I've been doing some really, and I mean really big tech transformation stuff, worldwide tech transformation stuff. Here's how we sell you tech consulting. You all know, right? We talk about bang for buck, horizons, a series of transformation responses, but we need to learn to walk before we run, blah, 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 all the usual consulting stuff. Because at the end of the day, the value is going to be delivered incrementally. So we want you to do the biggest amount of value, hopefully as cost effectively as we can, and then we release the other packages as we go. They add up, and we might change some of these later ones if a new idea comes up, right? That's not what's happening here. We build a skill bot. The skill bot does the skill. It will now always do the skill. We build a second skill bot, incremental value. It also does the skill. We build an agent, and it talks to both of these guys to do new things they couldn't do by themselves. Incremental, multiplicative, multiplicative. What happens is you start to build these components out and then help them talk to each other through orchestration between the AIs. Cabin pressure situation. That's not what I normally do when I'm doing tech. I see multiplicative value realization with the business's change. If the business reorganizes the business model around the new capability, yeah, sure, we can get significant uplift. That's a digital transformation strategy. I'm seeing that mechanic inside the tech. So of course that's going to have the effect outside. And this is why when people are saying, whoa, this is going to massively disrupt the industries, right? Yeah, because I'm now seeing a multiplicative value signal before I even leave the tech layer. So I'm certainly going to see it once I get it out into the human layer and the rest of the business. It's another reason why this idea of them building on themselves, it's okay for your first use case to be quite simple, but make it meaningful. That's the key. Don't make it a toy, don't make it a gimmick, make it meaningful, because I can pretty much guarantee you there's a way to get a simple, meaningful thing into prod. Keep it there, build the next one, get them to talk to each other. This is really working for us with our clients in prod. So, again, Salesforce have made this easy. I shouldn't say that like that's a surprise. I mean, of course they have. No, they've actually made it easy because they've immediately tried to bundle up this capability. This whole idea around AI requests as a per user per month thing, it's actually a pretty good deal. If you've got a significant pool of seats, because that resets every month, they're not stupid. They're saying, this is a really good reason now to have a pool of seats, whether it's for sales or for service, because this is about getting it into production. This isn't, I've bought a certain number of tokens for your POC, good luck. This is, no, that's going to keep renewing for you. And they're not just tokens for you to use with a provider. They're the full stack. They're the trust layer. They're the thing I was talking about where it's finding social security numbers. And it's helping you orchestrate it. So there's real value add. All you have to do is literally go, we'll get Einstein for service. And it's an add-on. You know, it's basically like your new Ultimate Edition with the additional AI component. So we love that. That makes it very, very easy. We don't have to sit there and tick, you need this SKU and this SKU and this SKU and this SKU, and then you need some of these and some of those. Like, that's a better way to think about it. So I mentioned just to the last bit, and we're actually doing well on time. I mentioned that we've got a technique. We're very proud of it. Tesseract. We call it Tesseract because we're obviously horrible Marvel fans, but also because Tesseract, it means a multidimensional object, a hypercube. And that's what we were trying to convey, that when you really get passionate about design and technology, it is multidimensional. And understanding the human context has always been at the heart of what we do. The other thing I hate is unstructured requirements gathering, right? I'm also a consultant. I love consulting, right? I'm still doing it now after all these years. But the thing I hate the most is the thing I know you hate the most, which is getting locked in a room with the 20 T&M consultants asking unstructured questions at you for a week, right? And this just keeps happening. Kill it with fire. I don't want it anymore. And so what we've built is a system where actually they're highly structured, 60-minute workshop modules. They do a thing. We answer that question. They have inputs and they have outputs, and they work like a syllabus, and they are repeatable and they are valuable in themselves. If you spend 60 minutes with us, the idea is you should walk away with some value, right? That's how we built the whole thing. It also keeps us very focused on structuring how we're collecting information, like an interview for a persona or an assessment of data variety, right? They're very short, sharp things that all add up together. Helps enormously with what I said. It turns out this thing likes. It likes building little modules that then clip together and create multiplied value. Similar approach is what we take to how we begin to discover. So you don't have to bite off the entire organization. You can work your way through it piece by piece. But at the absolute heart of it is a people process, right? The personas, where we're deeply understanding why people do the job they do and how they interact. But even a little further than that. I mentioned the decision loop. This thing has just become incredibly important. This is literally what we've done with some of the biggest one I've ever had was actually legitimately here in this city with a bank, I won't say who, that told me, you said that we had to have the users in the room and you insisted on it. Yeah, I did. Okay, well make it count, Johnny, because this meeting costs us $1.4 million because they're foreign exchange traders. Whoops. Now, the good news is that it worked, and they were really happy with the outcome, but the reason why we insist on it is to get into the decision loop. This is OODA broken down into sequences where we're going, what are you about to do? You perceive. We're literally talking sometimes here in the second increment. Where do you go to make the sense making? Tell us what you're looking at. How did you understand it? Because I wanted to know this, I went and got this, which told me this. Awesome. Now you're moving into the act step. How did you prioritize it? Well, I know that's better than that. That's really important for me, thank you. Right, we grab that type of information. We can do all sorts of tricks to optimize how we're displaying stuff in Service Console or in sales. But this is also now behavior as a service. If we go to that level of zoom in where we're talking 5-second decision loop, we can really unpack something that a bot can do at scale. But then there's the other side. If you zoom back up, another one of our favorite tools was dialogue. Again, these tools predate GPT. We've been using them for years because we know they help us build better systems, but they are really good at generative AI. It's a conversational map. It's a conversational architecture. So having done all the persona sessions, what we then do is we put the client in the middle and we capture actual conversational interactions between the personas and the second-order personas, so where they talk to each other. You can see we literally made it look like ChatGPT. Again, that was years ago. We were trying to create a shorthand for the conversation. This wasn't about all the other tools we've got to map out processes. This was about the reality of how people are talking. Why? What I said before. When a human talks to another human, what we are seeing is an ultra-high bandwidth meaning event. And what this tool let us do, when all of those personas have actually been documented as persona wheels, they all have panes. Suddenly we could run a little graph query. Show me all panes within 2n of the client. And funnily enough, you find that it's not just about the pains from the person calling the client. There's a consistent thread, like we know there is when we're doing deep service design work, that goes the whole way through the little Chinese whispers style chain event that goes all the way back and then back up to the front. But this is also an incredibly powerful tool for figuring out where to put the bots. Because what we then realize when we step back and we go, hang on, wait, everybody here, they need to summarize the case. There's a new persona called Charli. We're going to put Charli here. Charli can just do that. It's not a human, but it can just summarize a case. Who wants to talk to Charli? Suddenly it's, oh, I'll talk to Charli. Oh, I'll talk to Charli. I don't really need Charli, but I like that idea for Sam. And suddenly we're creating an architectural representation of where the agents need to situate that inherits a process flow. It inherits a data and a knowledge framework. But the way we decided where it went was humans talking to humans and how they're going to interact with the agent, with the entity. So you've been wonderful. We've made that through. We've got 10 minutes, which means we're going to take questions. We've also got some other people from Cloudwerx in the room. They've had to put up with me talking this crap for a very long time, and so they now speak fluent Cosgrove and can help translate. But you're very, very welcome. We're going to have some time, obviously, afterwards as well to catch up, to speak with any of them. But I will now have 10 minutes of Q&A. Hit me. This is usually the bit where if I'm going to have people throw stuff at me, it happens now. I'll brace myself. Questions? Yes?
John, in terms of amazing presentation.
Thank you very much.
In terms of concurrency and, like, as an example, if you had 10,000 calls hit at that exact second,
yes.
How does the system cope with that?
Yeah, really good question. The answer is that it's exactly the same as any other API engineering at the moment, right? So there'll be load tests and there'll be expectations around service level agreements. So upscaling is a question everybody has at the moment for AI because it certainly has the scalability, the elasticity. The question is more around fault tolerance. Like the issue is that if you say you're going to do 10,000, concurrency, you need it to always do that. This is also why going straight to autonomous, you have to really, really be in a situation where making a very large investment makes a lot of sense doing that right now because you're probably going to have to take ownership of the underlying infrastructure, and you can. Right? Things like as you're hosting the LLM for you can give you another level of awareness of what your load and consumption is, but it also significantly increases how much you're investing. In terms of Salesforce at the moment, Salesforce is indicating that it's within their normal API limits. And so if you're using Salesforce to process this, the Salesforce side of it, I don't think is going to be the issue. The problem is that it's not just Salesforce. Salesforce is then also passing it to an underlying LLM. Now, Salesforce have also given you the option of using their Azure hosted versions of things like OpenAI, right? So there's also another option there to try and create a level of, I guess, private supply or managed supply. But if you really, really need to acid test a question like that, we have to work with Salesforce directly. The good news is they're very keen to. And that's how it's always been. Like I was involved in rolling out, CRM analytics at the beginning and Einstein. When you're at this phase, if you do want to really stress test it, the good news is Salesforce will totally come to the party. You'll be able to work with their product teams. But you'll want to ask that question to understand, in this case, not just the Salesforce layer, but the layer underneath. So that was me going, you need to be careful, but it's certainly not impossible. And we do already have multiple published situations at the moment where people are completely changing call center layouts, right? Like they're routing 2,000 headcount call centers to a completely different activity because they've been able to turn that whole thing into something going straight to instantiated agents. So I think it's more about stability at the moment rather than the actual capability to scale. We usually see things like that solved in like 90 days, 6 months at the most. Yeah, does that answer as well as I can? Okay, good. Yeah, the exciting thing, the crazy thing is that it is an API, so we're going into a world where there's trillions of these, not billions. There's trillions all happening in parallel, right? And then we're going to let them talk to each other. It's amazing, and it's also humbling, and it's why I'm like, I really want to get people talking about it. Thank you, good question. Anyone else? Yep, we've got questions. So microphone here and then this lady here.
Thanks. Great talk, by the way.
Thank you.
I was just wondering about like custom intents in very specialised environments. So we've got at REA, we've got advertising, digital, we've got a bit of consumer, a bit of business to business and training an LLM to understand all the context and understand something such as a change of listing is quite difficult. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm not big on train your own LLM, but you're REA, so you might be. Where you have a very specific use case and you have a lot of proprietary data, then going into train your own LLM, it may make sense. Obviously, fine-tuning rather than completely retraining has had some benefit. And again, it comes down to the economics, right? That's why I have that slide. It's actually an economic question about your business model and how you're going to see that convert into marginal return, right? So if it's worth the squeeze for a 5% improvement in the nuance of intent through a fine-tuning cost, then it makes sense to do it. What I've found, though, is, again, I think people rush to it because of the naivety of the prompts. People really do not understand how powerful the context window actually is. And it's understandable because it's a very different creature. But I have found that I get significant improvements by really dialing in on what we are actually feeding the context window long before we have to worry about the additional tuning. I do think we need to be cautious about investing in our own LLMs for the reasons I outlined before. Again, REA, you're an example of someone who actually, it might make a lot of sense to have your own. But what I usually come back to is, but what are we trying to get it to do? Are we really trying to teach it a different language, right? If it's genomic sequencing, yes, we are, right? But if it's just that there's a particular phrase or term, we really have to ask ourselves, is it worth the enormous cost of a custom train event? The other thing too is quantitative. So REA, you guys are doing an enormous amount of quant. Don't use it for that, right? So the quant function can be solved using all the tech we've already got to do dynamic quant. Turn that into an API which feeds this thing, and suddenly you're way more likely to get a very nuanced outcome, right? That's the other challenge. Is one of the anti-patterns I see is, we'll feed it the 10 other people that have had the same price point of something, and it'll average it. No, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Pre-average it using a calculator from 1985 instead of the machine god, and you'll probably get a better outcome, and it'll also be cheaper. That's my take. Don't know if that helps. And again, could be wrong. Remember, in 3 months' time, this could all be incorrect. But at the moment, that's what we're seeing. And sorry, question over here.
Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
And from an organisational perspective, certainly understand consistency, efficiency, productivity. I'm wondering if you put your consumer hat on, and in particular, I'm thinking of a persona which may resemble my mother, the 80-year-old woman who still likes to pay her bills at the post office. And I can imagine her calling up and being incredibly sceptical about talking to what she would call a robot.
Absolutely.
So I'm interested in sort of consumer sentiment.
No, 100%. And I mean, the reason we do that presentation that way, in particular that way, notice that we were very clear about we're actually using off-the-shelf stuff, is because of that. I think we've put an enormous amount of research and work, and I love doing stuff with good service design teams. That it's all about that. It's all about the psychology of the customer and the consumer, and really taking that to heart. So I think it's arrogant in the extreme to just assume and everyone's going to want to do this. In fact, there's the potential for that to be a really powerful anti-sentiment. We've seen that. We've seen industries where people are defining themselves by saying we're not going to let it anywhere near what we do because we're a creative outlet, right? And there's an authenticity that we're now going to compete on. So I absolutely categorically do not advocate that this should be a rush to just go now everybody talks to the robot. First of all, there's some compliance issues, right? Very, very quickly everybody agreed the first sensible law is you need to identify that it is an AI. Right, so the correct introduction would actually be, I'm Charlie, I'm an AI assistant at Spark Eagle or something to that effect, right? And what will probably emerge in many use cases will be, if you'd like to talk to a human instead, you can at any time say blah, right, and that'll happen. But people then argue, well, that takes away the competitive advantage or the effort. I go, no, because we've already have to have that in our IVR processes, and if we do have hi, this is an important call from insert person who wants to take your money here, right? Like we've already got some protocols. Sorry, was that too close to home? But we've already got protocols that allow you to bypass. And so I think the important thing is that's still present. It's another reason why I go, look, I'm not interested in we destroy the economy overnight and there's no role for humans. That would be kind of silly. And I absolutely think that this is one of the reasons why I think that's overzealous, is that, I mean, you can try it if you want to, but if your competitor correctly reads exactly what you just said and keeps their really clever, well-connected, empathetic people instead of firing them, then when there's that kickback, they're going to have an advantage. Do I think, though, in the long term, to really take the question the whole way through, do I think this is going to shift, though? Yeah, I do. Watching how quickly, in particular, the kids have just embraced this thing. Hell, watching what I do, you can already see, like, the speed with which I dropped all pretense at stopping, how I'm going to anthropomorphize these things. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we're not built for that. By the time you're talking to them as often as I have to, of course it's a them. Of course I'm starting to put a personality. So I think we're going to see consumer trend very rapidly to actually, I'm totally okay with that. But while we're in the middle of it, we have to, I think, be respectful. Just my view. Did that answer your question? Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes, yeah. Okay.
Enterprise or corporate world, it's how much depend. Sorry, great presentation.
Oh, you don't have to think.
No, it really is. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Just in the corporate world, how much dependence or how much training is required for the agents to be able to prompt properly?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't think everybody should be a prompt engineer. I actually think that's part of the issue, that there's two pieces going on here. There's how do I get my people to use something like ChatGPT in the flow of work right now, where my ability to craft a prompt changes how I get the outcome. That's not how I'm doing it, even in our own business. What I'm doing is I'm building custom GPTs, and I'm releasing that custom GPT to the fleet. So what that's doing is it's actually helping me get in front of the prompting. I'm actually trying to do some pre-work so that no matter what you type in, that's going to route your question in a slightly different way. That's effectively what the whole thing winds up being, is layers of preempting what the input function is going to be so that you don't have to become an expert. What we're going to see in the next generation of models, we're really going to find out either the end of this year or the start of next year, we're going to get the Gen 5 models. And then we're all going to know. We're actually going to know, what are we getting strapped in for? Is it a 10, 15-year horizon, or is it 24 months? We won't know till that drops. But what we're pretty certain of is that they're going to have significant internal agentic capability naturally. And the reason why that matters is the more agentic it is, i.e. it's got multiple pieces in it helping it work you out, the less your prompt matters. Right? The whole reason that's being built is that's the killer app. The killer app is when you don't need to know anything. Just talk to it and make stuff happen. So that's another reason why, again, my posture is to advise you in my job on your strategy with technology and your investment. And I don't want you to overinvest in something which has the highest likelihood of any technology in history of being wiped out in disruption within 6 to 12 months. And that's why I go the prompt thing. I think we've maybe run away a little bit there, but having a core group of people who do become familiar with prompting and working with your friendly partners who can show you some tricks and tips for how to do that well, I think that's valuable. But I think it's a valuable skill set that's entering this technology, this digital domain. The other thing which I find really interesting about it is that's not programmers. We've proven that. Sorry guys, you kind of crap at that. We need you to do all the APIs, but the actual prompting bit is an amazing opportunity to bring the business in and to be part of it. No worries, no, thank you. Well, we are at time, but like I said, I'm not turning into a pumpkin, still be here. You've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for all the comments. I'm really glad that you liked it, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.